Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying!
Yes, guys, welcome back to the Cannon Podcast and the main podcast on a Tuesday. Hope you're all doing very, very well. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for engaging with us, listening to us. If this is your first time listening to the Cannon Podcast or your 999th time, have we done 1,000? I'm sure we've done 1,000 episodes. We've done a lot at this point. Just thank you for joining us. We don't say that enough, so thank you so much. No George today because had a bit of a family emergency, so we're wishing him well. But I am here with the man, the myth, the hat, Rohan Jivan.
Hey-ya!
You said before it's keeping your temple warm.
Yeah, I'll use a different word. I'll keep my noggin warm.
Do you know people are missing word of the day?
Yeah, I need to actually step my game up on that because I ain't got any words right now. But
maybe what we should do is buy you know those I feel like in like sort of old American TV shows they'd have like on the desk and they'd like peel it off and it was like a word of the day. Do you know what I mean? Those like
yeah, I've seen that. Maybe I do need it. I think it's fun when you get like a really juicy word. Oh, it's a good feeling. It's a proper
nothing better.
Feeling.
Nothing better.
Then you can use it on Twitter and try and sound smart.
Yes, and that's the aim of life, I would say.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's the aim of life. Thank you for joining us on the main podcast. Before we get to the Arsenal stuff, just a couple of things. We've got a few series coming out soon. Hopefully a preview for the United game this week with Liège. We've got a Rate My Take. If you haven't seen Rate My Take before, you can send your stuff in by video, which a few of you have, which is great, or by text, and we'll rate your take later on in the week. It's always fun. I feel like we should get you on those, Rohan. The first episode was good fun, so that's coming up. You get priority access to that if you are a director, and you also get to ask the questions if you are a Patreon member. You had something to say, Rohan?
So when it comes to like Rate My Take, and that's what you can't get too technical with it. You've got to just be like on the spot.
Pure vibes.
It has to be, doesn't it? It can't be too tactical. It's got to be just like.
Do you think we're vibes enough on the Cannon Podcast sometimes?
Depends. Some days we're maybe two vibes. Some days we're just not vibes. We're just absolutely boring.
I thought I buy that. So some days, because I mean this is kind of going into so basically promo over. Thank you for bigger into the chat. This is kind of maybe a good place to start with the chat about Arsenal today. We're going to get into the Inter game. We're going to talk about the Forest game a little bit. Obviously, we're sort of on to the next game now, so we'll sort of talk more broadly. But I just sort of want to have a general chat about where we're at, and this is kind of a good place to start. I was on the Arsenal Opinion podcast with Jacob Hawley. Do you know who Jacob Hawley is? You probably know his face. He's really, really good. He also does the Screen Rot podcast, which is some of the clips that come out.
Is that
really funny.
Pedro Legrove?
Yeah, with Legrove, yeah. And he said something, and I just think it's so well articulated. And like this season so far, and I say this sometimes, say at the beginning of the season, someone had given you a button, and if you press that button, Arsenal win the league. You skip to May, and like your life has happened, but and you remember your life, but in a football sense, you press that button, you skip to May, and we've won the Premier League. Would you press it in August? Now, obviously, like your initial instinct is like, well, of course. But then if you really think about it, give yourself like a couple of minutes to think about it, and you're like, actually, I don't know if I would, because the whole point of it is that you go through the season, you go through the journey, you go through the ups and downs of the season, all that sort of stuff. And Jacob made a really good point. Other than the Bayern game and the Spurs game, this season, have there been enough kind of landmark, exciting moments? Will we look back on 25-26? Because, we'll get into sort of how we're playing and why we're playing the way we are, etc., etc. But just from a broader perspective, will there be enough moments at the minute in 25-26 where we go, yeah, that, maybe the Gabriel moment against Newcastle you put in, but performances is really what I mean, where we feel like we've earned the title, where we look back and we go like, yeah, that was good, because I understand, we'll talk about all the context around it, but I do get it. I don't feel like we're earning it at the minute, even though we're top of the league, even though we're 2 games away from a trophy, even though we're, I think, was it four games away from an FA Cup final or whatever. I feel like at the minute that there's almost I feel like it's like holding 2 truths. One is we are top of the Premier League with all these ridiculous metrics around us. Like there's some metric about like the amount of I think we've restricted 5 teams in the Premier League to no shots on target already so far this season, which is the most out of anyone in any of Europe's top 5 leagues at any point in the last 5 years in any season. But we've done that before the end of the season. It's ridiculous. Like some of the things that we're doing in this league are ridiculous. But at the same time, the joy aspect. I come on the instant reaction. That's kind of why I picked up from what you were saying. I come on the instant reactions. And sometimes it's like, yeah, we've won 2-0. Good. Well, we should have. It's like, well, should we? And I don't know if I'm getting enough joy out of this season. Anyway, that was a bit of a ramble, but I hope you understand what I'm saying.
No, absolutely. So it goes back to the concept of vibes, right? And if I was to ask you about, your favourite Arsenal games over the past 3 years since Arsenal have become this juggernaut to win the Premier League, speaking for myself, I wouldn't be picking many from this season. I genuinely wouldn't. I'd be looking at, everybody remembers in 22-23, that Brentford game away from home, the 3-0. It was so good. And that was a Brentford team that, it was good, but it wasn't pulling up any trees, but it was the way that we did play and some of the individual performances. And then you look at Leicester 4-2 with Gabriel Jesus and that game, the Liverpool games at home, the 3-2 in that season. And then obviously last season as well, you've got, the Real Madrid encounters. You've got Man City smashing them at a time in which, we've been on the receiving end of massive defeats against Man City, before Mikel, even with Mikel, especially in that 21-22 season. So I think there's a big element of that. I think there's a big element of the surprise at the time as well of how good Arsenal became, which is why we have that feeling, or why I have that feeling of the excitement in some of those games. And I think this season, a lot of it also comes down to how serious it is this season, how it means so much to get over the line. Where if you ask a lot of Arsenal fans, I don't sit in this camp where I want to win the Premier League. I massively want to win it, and because I believe this team deserves tangible. It deserves a tangible thing that it can look at, that it's earned and it's deserved, and we've not had that yet. We've been a team in the past 3 seasons that's accumulated the most points, but we've not won anything that is tangible that we can touch. And I think for me, that pressure on top of also how difficult the league is now. And it's going to continue to get more tougher and tougher and tougher with the money that is coming into. I mean, the Premier League in terms of financially, it's a juggernaut in comparison to any other league. The broadcasting rights and the money that's coming overseas. So there's a lot of things there, but I think ultimately it does boil down to the expectation of we have to win this season. But when you said that on that podcast, and it's I wouldn't just take Arsenal winning the Premier League and skipping to May. I kind of understand that, because for me, it's about how you play as well. I want to win the Premier League playing a way that I enjoy. And I do still have a lot of games this season that I have enjoyed watching. But if you're comparing it to the previous seasons, I would certainly say this season hasn't been as enjoyable as those 2 seasons. But at the same time, I still do believe that this season is the most sustainable of being able to get over the line. And it's kind of balancing that excitement. Like the Bournemouth game in 22-23 that everybody loved, right? Go and watch that game, but there were so many cracks in it. But the excitement, the end-to-end nature of it, Ramsdale making big saves, then obviously Reece Nelson towards the end, that's a really exciting game. But is that game sustainable every single time? I don't think it is. And, so...
It feels like we are optimized for that sustainability.
Yeah.
Which, is more effective. And maybe this is kind of the perennial curse of the fan, isn't it? It's we want more sustainable football. We can't have these ups and downs. So we get more sustainable football and we go, it's boring. And maybe we'll never be happy. I don't know. But I don't think I'm alone in the kind of feeling of are we getting enough joy out of this season? Are we kind of just getting it done and being efficient and whatever? And as you say, maybe that comes from just from the expectations. There is no... After 3 title races in a row, people just want to win. They just want to win. Because
they know we're good. I think everybody knows that Arsenal don't need to prove how good they are. Arsenal needs to prove that they can win it.
For a Man City, if they, I suppose, it would be a different 6 of the last 8 titles. I'm not saying they don't want to win the Premier League, but it's not a disaster if they don't win it's not the end of, you know, every player's career. They're all going to leave, you know, and it feels like we're at that stage with Arsenal where, you know, obviously the contract situations have been sorted, etc., etc. I don't believe that, but certainly from a fan anxiety perspective, it's like the project's over if we don't win, which maybe means, especially combined with this much more sustainable football, which I believe will go the distance, means the fan experience isn't. It's like it's so nervous. It's so efficient, and then the team are so efficient that it sort of all correlates in this not a particularly joyful experience. And I could be wrong, and there might be some people saying, you know, no, I'm loving this team and I'm loving this era, and you're just projecting your nerves onto it. And maybe fair enough, but I can only speak for myself. And I also think some of it comes down to the specific issues of this team, which is maybe where we should go now in terms of attacking. So yeah, this is all sort of coming off the back of the Forest game and the conversations about attacking. We had a really, really good chat on the instant reaction, which I would recommend people to go check out if you want sort of more specific stuff about the game. But Rohan, I found probably a really good jumping off point is some numbers from Hamza Khalik Lunat, who is at H Khalik Lunat on X, as a football reporter for Time Sport. To set the tone for this conversation, so put some numbers out there around the sort of general trends in the Premier League, and I'm actually just going to send this to you so you can see it as well. Just I'll send it to you on WhatsApp, mate. So I would recommend going and have a look at it, but I'll summarise it for people on audio as well. Goal scoring rates have fallen for the second consecutive season in the Premier League. Forwards are scoring at a very low rate this season at 0.17, which is the lowest rate in the last 16 years. It had a peak in 2011 of 0.26 goals per game by forwards in the Premier League, and goals from forwards are now at a 16-year low at 0.17, and it's been falling consistently over the last 2 years. Forwards are attempting fewer shots on average this season. So again, a 16-year low after a peak in 2012 at over 2 shots a game. Forwards are now averaging 1.33 shots per game. There's some more data. So forwards are having, in the Premier League, fewer overall touches and touches inside the box. Overall touches and touches inside the box per game by forwards in the Premier League. You can see the trends are falling. So touches inside the box have kind of stayed the same, but touches overall for forwards have fallen from around the 30-ish mark to around the 25-ish mark. Again, apologies for audio listeners, and I appreciate this isn't perfect, but I recommend go having a look. And you could also see there's some more data on sort of set pieces and blah, blah, blah that we've sort of covered before. To set the tone for the conversation we're going to have about Arsenal and our attacking stuff, I do think that's worth starting there, because it is interesting, and I'd love to get your take on sort of why that's happening, how much that affects Arsenal, where you're at with that, and what it is in this league, because these two conversations, we're going to have them separately, but they sort of can't be separated. And I understand why Arsenal fans are frustrated with how we're attacking at the minute, and I share those frustrations, and there are a lot of things that we're doing that I don't love that we'll come to. But equally, we are existing in a context where the league is changing. I think defences are much more compact. You're having man-to-man pressing systems coached by Europa League winners at mid-table clubs. You're having some of the best coaching talent in the world. And another great point that actually, again, Jacob made, should have just got Jacob on the pod, another point Jacob made is when you're looking at when you're looking at quality in the lower halves of the league, the players that we look at and we say, oh, that player's probably going to go. That player, will probably go to a big club. Or, the sort of oh my God, I can't believe that Nottingham Forest had that player or Palace had that player. They're often players behind the ball. Elliot Anderson, Murillo and Sells at Forest are probably the three that you'd pick out, I would say, from that game are the ones that I looked at and went, those are the guys. I built a little list a little bit earlier on. Where are we? Let me find it. If you're looking at Palace, you could probably go, before today, Gehi, Wharton, Lacroix, Diakite, Kamada, Diakite, Truffert and Senesi at Bournemouth, Mukiele, Xhaka and the goalkeeper at Sunderland, Coyote and Damsgaard, and there are good forwards, obviously, but the real quality that's showing itself in the Premier League at the minute is the defensive stuff. So it's not only the approach, it's the quality of the players. Before we have the conversation about Arsenal, I'd love to sort of start there.
Yeah, it's so I've been speaking about this a lot, where it's like there's the conversation of, do teams play differently to Arsenal than in comparison to other leagues? Like, I remember when there was the discourse about, when Bournemouth played Man City at the Etihad, and there was the conversation of, look how aggressive Bournemouth are playing. They don't play this way against Arsenal. I can assure you, they absolutely do. They absolutely do. It's not just exclusive to Arsenal teams being aggressive. It's not just exclusive to the likes of Man City. Arsenal, even with how good we are, teams will still set up and look to stamp their authority and be aggressive. When we played Sunderland at goal kicks, they're pressing man to man, 1v1s across the entire pitch. And then, people may perhaps say, well, you could caveat it with the forwards, that we had on the day, the number of injuries. And my response was, no, even if we had our best team, trust me, they would have played the exact same way because they backed themselves. The physicality of the Premier League is at a different level. It's crazy. That's why you're seeing a lot of games in which it's basically the loose ball game where the ball is in the air. It's like a tumble dryer, and you're throwing it around, and it's all about second balls. And whoever wins the second ball can then set themselves. And when they get the second ball, you then pin them in. But the moment you pass back, the opposition aren't just camping deep. They're going after you, and they're looking to press, and they're going to go man-to-man again in the same way that we do as well. There's a homogeneity when it comes to how teams play. With Arsenal, in comparison to like Arsenal and Sunderland, there's so many comparisons that you could make there. Sunderland defend deep when they're pinned deep, but when the opposition is looking to play out from the back, they want to jump forward, they want to press, because they believe that they can match you physically 1v1. That's the biggest difference. Teams in the past were not able to do this consistently. That's why Man City, time and time again, had teams set up in a low block, and teams were reluctant to come out, because if they came out, they were worried about getting played through. So they felt sinking deeper and compacting the spaces would give them the best opportunity, and then hitting a quick counter in transition. That's not how teams play now. Teams will go for you in all phases of play at any given moment that they can do. There's still the odd team here and there that won't. Like, for example, Nottingham Forest is a prime example of a team that's very much of the traditional type of side in which they didn't press as aggressively. They sat off, they sat deep and deep, and they were happy to relinquish any control that they would have in the game. But there's not many Nottingham Forests in the team in the league, and also that's a Nottingham Forest team which you've just alluded to. Look at the players that they have. Elliot Anderson, Morgan Gibbs-White. You're looking at players like Nico Williams,
Igor Jesus. I thought
Igor Jesus. This is a team that's 17th or 18th. So I think it is something that is not just exclusive to Arsenal. And I think if you look at the numbers from forwards, just in general, like some of your stellar forwards across the league, they're not hitting the same numbers as what they were before. So
and specifically, and I'm glad you said this because this is another point before we talk about us, is the wide forwards. Yeah. I had a look at it earlier. The top 15 Premier League goal scorers right now. First and foremost, as we said, the goals are drying up just in general for forwards, because there's only two forwards, which is Thiago at Brentford and Haaland, who are on over 10 Premier League goals, i.e. after 22 games, there are only two guys in the entire league who are scoring more than one goal every other game, which used to be the marker, right? That used to be the marker for what's a good Premier League Premier League goal scorer, Premier League centre forward or forward or whatever. There's two guys doing that right now, so that tells you something. And then the rest of the sort of the top 15 are all centre forwards. It's all Watkins and Voltemada and Calvert-Lewin and those guys. The traditional wide players, they're on like 5, 4, all of them. Like honestly, and it's Gordon and Tross, and actually our guys are in those conversations. They're in the sort of 4 and 5 conversations. And then you go further down, it's it's the Salah and all of those guys are sort of let's call them. You can't quite sort of make that differentiation because obviously teams play differently, but more traditional wide players are in that bracket. And I think it's about, well, if you have that compactness, if you have that sort of that quality in a block, the guys who can make stuff happen, the guys who can move blocks around. So that's the Haalands, that's the Semenyos, that's the Calvert-Lewins, that's the guys who have the physical qualities to deal with those blocks, not maybe sort of jink their way through those blocks because you can't do that. But also the guys who are willing to shoot from distance. So that's the Morgan Rogerses, the Bruno G's, those sorts of guys who are also in that top 15. So it's just changing. And again, this is not, maybe this is to move to Arsenal. This is not woe is us, because we need to find solutions to this. And I don't think we have. And I don't think we've found block movers or enough guys who can sort of deal with those blocks, whether it's shots from distance or, you know, the truly elite 1v1 players like a Madueke. Have we fully got him into the game? I don't know. The cutbacks, etc. There are ways around this, but we haven't seemed to find them.
Just to quickly add on to that, you know, looking at the Man United game, for example, right? Man City have got big injuries at the back, you know, with the centre backs and the full-back areas as well, with Núñez, who was out in that game. But if you look at what's happening ahead, they had Rodri in that game, they had Cherki in that game, they had Semenyo, Doku, Haaland. All these players on paper, if you're thinking about what is Man City's strongest 11, you know, most of them are in it. You know, their attacking front line, serious quality. They created nothing against Man United. Absolutely nothing. You know, and they were up against a block, a very disciplined block, and they found it very difficult. You know, and this is why you're seeing a lot of emphasis on the press, because one of the best ways to create chances is via your press. Because when the opposition is building out, they have the mindset of they want to play through this press. So they are structuring themselves accordingly to play through the press. They're not structuring themselves accordingly to be in the most optimum shape to defend the transition. It will be on their mind, but they're looking to play through. The team that is looking to win the ball back wants to win the ball back, create a quick artificial transition. The moment you win it back, the spaces are open because there's a difference in mindset between the team that is looking to win the ball back and a team that is looking to play through. And that is why the counter press has become such a key weapon to create opportunities, and why I'd be interested to see the number of goals that are created in settled play versus the number of goals that are scored through the press. Like when Man City played Brighton, the big chances that they created in that game, 2 really big ones, was how they were able to defeat the Brighton press in 2 situations, and they should have scored. You know, when a team is sat deep, and they're like Nottingham Forest is a great example, and as we're going to probably talk a bit more about us, Nottingham Forest are a team that under Sean Dyche, they had no intention of playing out from the back, and that's cool. You know, but then that means we can't score chances through our press. The only way we're going to score is through breaking them down. And it becomes harder because these teams are very disciplined. That's not saying we can't do things better. Absolutely, there are things that we can do better. But this is why a lot of games this season, not just Arsenal, but if you look at someone like Chelsea, for example, they're breaking the game open through the likes of set pieces, through throw-ins. These are some of the margins that coaches are looking to strive for. With Arteta now getting the new throwing coach as well. So it is becoming a lot more difficult to break teams down in a settled block. So
New throwing coach that he's denying.
I saw that. I thought, oh.
Don't know why he's doing that. He's literally tweeted it himself with a picture of Coldy. But anyway, let's move sort of slightly off the tactics for a second before we come to ours. What did you make of the response to the Forest game? And, you know, always, I put my caveat of it's on social media, pinch of salt, etc., etc. But equally, you know, there was a frustration and an understandable frustration. Even you could even feel it in the ground and conversations you had with people around the game. So yeah, what was your take on the frustration at Forest? Because it feels like a lot of these issues that we're discussing have kind of come to a head in that game, and it's sort of my sort of working theory at the minute, and I don't know if it's true or not. I need to look into. Well, I don't know if it could be proven numbers, but it's sort of that we've got these sort of wounds and bruises. And it's, you know, we can't break down low blocks, or Odegaard is useless, or Gyökeres is useless, or whatever it is. And then sort of that's not, or the number of those narratives that have plagued us over the last couple of seasons are not necessarily true in 3-4 games in a row. Then they happen in a game, we go, oh, we're back to that same issue again. And I don't know if it's always true. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And that's the difficulty, because it's like, yeah, it's holding all of these things. And as I always say, I'm looking for patterns. What are the things we consistently at the minute aren't doing? And what can we fix, rather than going, oh my God, we've got these same issues that we've had for 15 years. It's like, no, hang on. We have solved a lot of these, but that, you know, they can happen occasionally. So yeah, where do you sit on that? But mainly on the sort of the response, I would say. Just
to throw that back to you, right? Do you think that is the case of, you know, when we look at our, you know, the seasons under Mikel, what has really plagued Arsenal on a macro level is those 3-game clusters where we drop points in 3 games in succession. And that further compounds the belief that, we're back to our old ways. Whereas if it was an isolated game and then we respond, like, for example, I think we've done very well this season. I mean, we're on course for a 3-game cluster, really, in the Premier League because we've dropped points in our last 2 games. So the Man United game is big in that sense. But this season, we've responded, really well during adversity. When we drop points against Sunderland, what do? We responded immediately. When we dropped points against Aston Villa, what do? We responded with winning 5 games on the bounce. But now we're starting to enter a little period in which, we've had 2 goalless draws. That's where those old habits that people feel is starting to creep into the team. And I think it's also further compounded by what Mikel says post-match in these games, because he's very data-driven. He's looked at, he would have had the key metrics that they obviously look at. There's obviously more detail to it, but he would have been given the information of what actually happened in the game from a data standpoint. And he'll project that to the media, and that response is sometimes very similar to other games in which we failed to break down a team. Like when we played Everton last season 0-0, his comments in that game are probably very similar to his comments against Nottingham Forest. So do you think maybe it is because when we are a team that has been known for dropping points in succession in a similar sort of way?
It's all these old bruises. Yeah. I also I think we have to be careful, especially on pods like this. We whether we do or not is up to people to decide, but we strive to understand the game from as deep a level as is possible, right? And I think a lot of the people in the audience feel the same. It's like, I want to understand. It's not, I think I do understand. It's, I want to understand. And so in that mindset, you can, I think, and I've been guilty of this in the past, sort of look down on people who have a more of an emotional reaction rather than the guys who are trying to understand why, if that makes sense. Like we're trying to go, okay, why did that happen? And that naturally comes with more of a curiosity, more of an understanding of okay, yeah, that makes sense to me, and and actually, and that can kind of exclude certain people. And I never want it to feel like we're, certainly me, I can only speak for me.
No, same as well.
I'm going like, you can't have that react. Of course you can. You're allowed it. And it's just different ways of viewing the game, right? And I think sometimes there is a bit of a kind of like, not snobbery, but a kind of like these emotional fans. It's like, well, if you're at the game and that's the way you view football, it's completely fine. So I never want it to be that. That said, there is the sort of the understanding, and then there's the analysis. And I think the analysis of it is that we're seeing the bruises just being pressed again and again. And maybe also on the Mikel point, that does he always sympathise with the fans? I don't know. I don't know if he engages with that sort of like, I understand that the fans are concerned about, potentially us throwing stuff away. And he doesn't really, he's so good with the media in a sense where he's just doing what he's doing. He doesn't really engage in it. And I wonder whether irks people.
That's a really good point, because it's like Mikel Merino starting right centre mid on paper against Liverpool and Man City was a big frustration for Arsenal fans, right? But when Mikel was asked about this, because obviously, who do we have to play in that position? We have an Eze, we have a Waneri. The general fan response was, why are you not starting those creative players who are more suited to playing that role in the eye of the fan? And then when he's asked about that, he will give a reason as to why he's picked Mikel Merino. And he articulates it in a way that does make sense. I get what he's trying to do. But maybe he doesn't see that side
but doesn't engage with the fan aspect of it.
Because I found the Man City game very interesting, because I feel like Mikel won't admit to it, but he recognised, I feel, my intuitive feeling is he made a mistake with Mikel Merino starting in that game at right centre mid. Hence why you saw Eze come on at half-time for Mikel Merino. I don't think Mikel Merino has been subbed off at half-time many occasions. But the response at half-time, there was a lot of frustration amongst the fans. And the frustration all stemmed with Mikel Merino. Mikel Merino, every time he received the ball and certain things he was doing, you can just feel it in the fans. It's like, this is slow. He's turning slow. This is not what we need in this game. And Mikel won't say it. Maybe there's an element of vulnerability that he doesn't want to show there, perhaps. But actions speak louder than words for me. You made that change at half-time. That shows that you believe, okay, I think I've got it wrong in terms of the type of game that this has become and the player that I've chosen in that position.
I hear it. And I think maybe the sort of the response that we were talking about is maybe explained by this, and also that, you know, I always feel how much of it is just every coach and every team will have their flaws, and we sort of fit. And the question is, are they fundamental flaws? Mikel, you know, you said it on address it, I think, in a second. You said it on the instant reaction. I think it's a brilliant point. Like, you know, prioritizing sort of the relationships, and, you know, well, Martinelli has to play because we're resting Trossard over like balance and profiles, and, you know, the front three of almost making three individual decisions rather than one decision of what the front three should look like that makes most sense for balance. Is that a title-ending, complete career-ending issue for Mikel? I don't know. It's hard to say. Who knows? But, like, you know, the working out what is a fundamental flaw and what isn't, you have to accept that every coach will have their shortcomings and sorts of things. And sometimes we can look at the few shortcomings he has and go, that is the fundamental issue. And maybe it is, but maybe it isn't. And I think sometimes that gets lost. I'm going to ask you a easy question, Rohan.
Yes.
What are Arsenal's attacking issues? What do you see? What do you see as the ones that, like, aren't necessarily, maybe you could talk about the Forest game if you want specifically, but that aren't necessarily like Forest specific, but more the ones that you'd say, actually, I take that one and I'm willing to kind of put some blame on the manager and the players?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could look at this in a number of ways. You could go really micro and look at specifics, but I genuinely do think there's an element of surface level analysis that is really applicable here across, you know, the front line, and about balance. I think the word balance is really important to acknowledge, because the point I made about Mikel on the IR about relationships is, I think we are all aware that this is a manager who values continuity massively. You know, he likes certain partnerships to develop, certain relationships, how players can connect with each other, more so than on paper what makes sense. You know, like, for me, I like a left footer paired with a right footer. I just think it makes sense to me. You know, like someone going inside, someone going on the outside to take another player away. I think that makes sense, and I think some of the best teams over the years have been able to have a lot of success with some of those little mini partnerships. I don't think on paper, Martin Odegaard and Bukayo Saka, I wouldn't associate them being two players who would work really well together, two lefties, and it has worked really well, with obviously Ben White being a massive part to the success that right-hand side has had. But that's an example in which he's allowed them to have time, and the relationship has developed, and it's become integral to the way that we can kind of flow through that side. This season, I don't know about you, mate, but Calafiori and Trossard, I did not have that as a partnership that was going to blossom in the way that it has. I didn't expect it, but it has, and he's persisted with it time and time again. And I think we've reaped the rewards there, in which I have said in previous pods that I'd say our left-hand side has clicked the most since 22-23, when we had Jesus drifting with Martinelli and Zinchenko, Granit Xhaka. But that wasn't something that I foresaw with Calafiori and Trossard. But it doesn't always work, you know, and this is maybe perhaps where people do have the frustration with Mikel will still persist with something because he feels there's a relationship and a connection that can be established there, but it's not really working, but then he will continue to persist with it. Like Madueke, Gyökeres and Martinelli as a trio. We've seen that 3 times. The Bournemouth game, you know, Mikel has been very big on, like, you know, it depends on the opposition, etc., and what we pick. I don't think he's showed me that he's really thinking about that a lot with some of his selections, because he has picked that trio, for example, together quite a few times. Like, I don't think it's a case of like, oh, it's 3 runners, that's why it didn't work against Forest. My point is like, well, it's 3 players who are not the most secure on the ball, you know, but he will go with it because it's a connection that he feels probably can establish something that can work, as opposed to the balance. 3 right footers on the left hand side. We've seen that before. You know, this is not something new under Mikel. You know, I felt like the 23-24 season with Jurriën Timber's injury. Before that, I think there was an expectation that the left hand side was going to be Rice, Timber, and Martinelli. But I wouldn't say that's a trio that gives me the feeling of balance. I felt that it's a trio that has never really been able to function together properly in an attacking sense. But he will persist with it because it's a relationship she feel that they can connect with each other well. So I do think there's an element of that. And I genuinely think, like the Forest game, I think if you started Miles Lewis-Skelly at left back and you started Eze at left wing or Trossard, I think you would have seen a much better performance.
Yeah, I think
Just
so.
something like that, So,
But again, it's continuity, it's relationships, it's everything but the balance. You know what I mean? It's like he's making decisions, not thinking about that. It feels like in some way.
Here's a quick another example, right? I think we'd both say our best period this season, 2 games in succession, was Spurs and Bayern Munich.
Mm-hmm.
Like that I would put them in a category of those games. Some of the best moments, right? The Spurs game, we started Saka, Marino, and Trossard up top. I don't know about you, but I would say on paper that trio is not the most balanced trio up front, but it worked. It did work in that game. And against Bayern Munich, what do we associate Bayern Munich with under Vincent Kompany? High energy, aggressive pressing. They're going to press us all over the pitch. What did we start? We started Marino, Saka, and Trossard. I feel like, I don't know about you, I think a Martinelli or a Madueke would have made sense in that game from the get-go because I feel they are players who can really threaten in behind for the spaces that they're going to leave. And this is where it's really funny because that trio, I thought were playing really well. And Trossard obviously picked up an injury. Madueke came on and felt we went up another gear. But he picked that trio again because I feel like he felt that the trio can connect well with each other and how they're playing in relation as opposed to the opposition. I feel like a Bayern Munich, you want more pace in behind. Certainly, I do. I want players who are going to be able to threaten behind and attack as close as possible to Manuel Neuer. Trossard, Saka, Marino, they're not really going to do that consistently. But he went with it, and it was our best performance of the season. Obviously, Trossard got injured, but yeah. So I think the continuity aspect is really important to note, and it's about how do you balance that in a time in which football is incessant, the fixtures are piling on and on and on. I don't think you can always do that.
No.
So
no, and I'm sure there's many games where he's thought about. I'm sure he does think about balance.
Yeah.
It's not black and white.
Yeah.
But it's a general. I think it is a general approach for continuity.
Like where does he lean more towards? Isn't it? Kind of
and sort of trusting his players and going, well, I have 3 good players and they'll work it out. Whereas that's not always the case, and he'll get it right and get it wrong. But I think that's fair across his tenure to look at that. I think that is fair. Yeah. The 2 other places, well, sort of one really, roll into one. I don't know if you saw that interview with Jamie Redknapp and Morgan Rogers talking about XG. Did you see it?
I did. Yeah. By the way, hold on, just quickly on that. I thought was it Jamie Redknapp answering the question?
Speak,
or...
let him speak. Oh, good Lord. It's funny, isn't it? Once I guess they get quite pally with the players, and then it's like, okay, hang on. Look, I found it interesting, and I'm not to sneer at Morgan Rogers or whatever. I mean, you could take the sort of slightly cynical route and say, 2 blokes arguing with maths to some degree, like it sort of is, but. Jamie Redknapp kind of makes a point in the second half of the video, which I sort of do agree with, which is that sometimes having a shot from distance or doing something unexpected creates a fear in the opposition and creates something in the crowd and even having a pot shot from 20 yards that goes around the post and the keeper has to get there. It puts a bit of like, oh, they're going to have that shot. It makes the defenders change how they're defending sometimes. It brings the crowd up or whatever. There is a kind of unseen aspect to it. And I think if it was, again, to maybe the continuity and balance thing sort of is number 1. Number 2, I would say, I feel like Mikel has always had this sort of probability-based way of attacking. And I really felt it against Nottingham Forest. It was if we keep doing this, we will get the ball into the highest XG position and we will score. And the thing is like on a maths level, you can't argue with that. Yeah. You actually can't. Like I can't imagine. It would be very hard to argue with Mikel around the coaching table that he's wrong to just keep putting the ball wide. keep circulating it, then put the ball wide, and then when the ball comes back into that area for a cutback, you've got the best opportunity. But I don't think that's the only aspect of football that's at play here, and I do think there's something in sort of this constant, even we even said on the instant reaction at the very end, like the 94th minute, Raya's still playing out for the back, and you're like, hoof it. And I know that isn't, it's not scientifically, but we all know the sort of the feeling of putting the ball at risk in a different way, and not always waiting for the perfect opportunity. I think we all do feel that with Mikel, that there is this, and he's probably right 95% of the time. But I think when we fall down, it does feel like just someone have a shot from distance, someone have a 1-2 and maybe win a foul mid, or whatever it is, something that isn't on the coaching manual. I do feel there is legs to this. I think people articulate it in different ways, or they're overcoached, or it's boring, or whatever it is. But I do think this sort of probability ball that he plays, sometimes I go, try something.
Yeah, I mean, Real Madrid.
Yeah,
it's just it's an intuitive feeling that Declan Rice had there. I know he's probably thinking, subconsciously, this is probably not the optimum way of scoring in this scenario, but I feel like I can score from here. I feel it's in range.
Yeah,
I back myself to score here.
Yeah,
and that's what probably that. I think Morgan Rogers. I think he was provoked to say like, "Oh, XG is a bunch of nonsense" by the interview from Jamie Redknapp. To be honest, I think
Also, probably his manager's maybe in his ear a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I think when it comes to Mikel, I stand by that way of thinking, data-driven in terms of being able to put the ball in the areas that is going to give you the highest probability of scoring a goal over the course of a season. Will win you the league. That's why I believe in this coach. It will win you this league. But there's always those games, mate, where it's about intuition, in which a pot shot from distance will open the game up. That's in the same way. In the same way it works on the opposite end of the spectrum, where you're defending, and it's like, if we defend this way and we're so good at it, we will stop them from scoring. Ask Brian Brobby that.
Yeah,
and
it felt to me similarly against Nottingham Forest, like the carry, probably against that block, the carry wasn't the most high XG thing to do. I understand that because they're overloaded centrally, there's space in the wide areas before you get to the fullbacks. If you just keep playing up against it, I get it. But go and break a block. See if the ball bounces for you in the middle. Like just go. Do you know what I mean? And I really feel that. So for me, just trying to sort of put a fine point on it. I think we're both agreeing on the sort of the balance issue, maybe the sort of the probability ball aspect of it. Other things like central access, I think obviously they're linked, but we sort of go through waves. We sort of have moments where we can really access the centre of the pitch, and then we can't seem to. We have moments where we can seem to transit. We scored quite a lot of transition goals since the turn of the year, and then we can't see. Those other things feel like they're going waves to me, where I sort of agree with people when they're saying it. But those two things specifically are consistent issues under Mikel, and I don't know if there's any more that you think of.
Yeah, but just to add a bit more meat to the bone there, what would you say, I'm kind of putting you on the spot, what would you say are like the games in which we really thrive through the centre, that spring to mind? The
first one I just thought of is Spurs, but I'm just going to go through the games.
Yeah.
Let's go from sort of maybe the top of the season.
Because I think this is where we can get some more, substance in terms of the types of teams we're playing as well, right? And
that's the thing is that we might struggle against teams who play a certain way. I think the Spurs game in particular was a game that I really felt we got some joy through the middle. The Newcastle game actually away at St James's Park, I remember a lot of joy through the middle.
Yeah.
Where are we? That West Ham game. I'm looking at some of the City games. It's not the City games, the Champions League games. Sorry.
Bayern Munich?
Yeah, to some degree. But do you know what I mean? When I say I'm not sat there watching every single Arsenal game going, we just can't access the middle. You know what I mean? Yeah,
no, I do hear you. I think that is certainly an area in which we can explore more. I do think this is where I think it goes back to balance and selection, right? Because when we've had Eze play at right centre mid, we have certainly accessed the centre a lot more. And that's just naturally because Eze is a player who likes to stay higher more as opposed to dropping out like Ødegaard does. And that will provide advantages in certain ways. But equally, Eze being high between the lines, central, is also going to open up more opportunities to play through the middle as well. And I think this all goes back to balance as well, because, I think Martin Odegaard this season has had a lot of really good games, but I think he's been ineffective over the past few. I don't think he was good against Chelsea. I don't think he was good against Liverpool. I don't think he was good against Nottingham Forest. But you're still picking him consistently. And is it about that relationship now with that trio, in which I've said on the pod, I really want to see Declan Rice, Martin Odegaard, and Zubimendi have a run of games. But equally, there are going to be certain games in which it's not going to be the optimum way of winning that football match. That's something that you could also challenge, where we're looking at the optimum way of scoring a goal, but are we giving ourselves the optimum way of actually winning this game of football on a macro level?
Yeah.
With picking this team, Martin Odegaard, for me, it clearly wasn't a Martin Odegaard game. It felt like something like an Eze game, but we haven't seen that, and we've seen Mikel persist consistently with Odegaard in some of these games. And I don't know if you saw Mikel's post-match comments on Eze, on not bringing him in earlier. He responded by saying, but we had other ways as well, and in the spaces that we could produce and the manner that they defend as well, it's very difficult to find those spaces, and that's what he's referring to in relation
and
to Eze.
That's why I think we didn't carry, because he's thinking they're so compact in those areas, and we keep going wide, and we'll get there in the end. So, but then it's like, but okay. Let's say I agree with Mikel, and in which the spaces between the lines aren't there because of how compact they are. But then equally, games against Chelsea, it's a more open game. How come Eze doesn't start there? The spaces are more open for someone like Eze to really thrive. So it's like, I feel like it's all coming back to a couple of things though, really, in terms of all the issues. So, yeah, and also you have to allow just for literal error, and that isn't attributed to any sort of long-term issue. I think just to close this off, I think the hardest thing to do, and let us know what you think in the comments about all this. The hardest thing to do is to kind of work out what is within the game, what is in the run of games, what is in the period, what is in the season, what is in the coach, what is in the era. You know what I mean? And sort of not attribute too much to to one thing or whatever. And that's the. And I'm not saying anyway we or you or I have certainly achieved this, but that's what we're striving to do. It's like, okay, there are one-off games where, for example, Odegaard, perfect example. There's one-off games where Odegaard doesn't suit, and people say, "Why do you criticise Odegaard more?" And I'm going, okay, but there are games this season where Odegaard has absolutely cooked. Absolutely, because I'm not going to sit here and say Odegaard isn't good enough for this team anymore just because he can't play one game. Well, and then someone might say, well, it's not just one game, it's a number of games. But then it's like, how many games in a season isn't Odegaard suitable for? And it's like, for me, it's like, I don't know, 6 or something like that. Is that okay for a captain? I think it probably is. If it became 15, 20, maybe that's a problem. But do you know what I mean? It's trying to work out the scale of each issue is the big one for me.
I mean, and we caveat all of this, the fact that Arsenal are top of the league, Arsenal are top of the Champions League. We're in a very good position to go to the final in a one-off game to win the Carabao Cup. So far we've got a nice draw in the next round of the FA Cup to progress there. It's all caveated that, and the thing is, we're saying all this and we're saying the areas of growth, but also recognizing the fact that we've not got top of the league. We're not top of all these top of the Champions League by luck. We've earned the right to be here.
Definitely.
And I think that for me, maybe also, when it comes to like fan frustration. I mean, I would never police someone how they feel. You feel how you want to feel about Arsenal. You do you. We'll do us, and that's my mindset on it. But also, I feel like there's an element of frustration for certain fans in thinking this team it can do so much more. It can do so much more, and maybe it's being more critical because the manager can certainly become even better than what he is right now, and this team can strive for greatness. It's not just a team in which win the Premier League and that's it. This team can win multiple trophies, and I think there's an element of that as well with the frustration of when we do drop points. So yeah. And
I think that kind of nicely rounds us off because we'll talk about loads of other stuff in the second half with the questions, but I do think that's it. It's holding two truths. This team can be better. This team certainly has issues. this team deserves critique when criticism is due, and it deserved it after Nottingham Forest. And, not but, and we are top of the Premier League. We are top of the Champions League. We have so many positives. And I think another big thing on this side as well, Rohan, which we haven't really discussed, is the chaos at every single other club.
Yeah.
Literally, man. I look around, and I think this is a thing that maybe we don't appreciate enough. City have signed a whole new team since last January. And their manager still might walk at the end of the season. There's a rumour from Richard Keys he might go. United have got an interim manager. Liverpool, half the fans want Slot gone, and they drew against Burnley at the weekend. Tottenham, Frank's got one more game, it looks like. Chelsea have just got a new manager, and God knows what's going to happen there. You're looking at Newcastle. Do they stick with Howe if he doesn't get in the Champions League? Sunderland have come up and done this ridiculous. And every single team, you just feel like is in this chaos thing, and we're probably the only ones who are just about keeping our heads above water with, could we access the middle a bit more, or what? Do you know what I mean? That's our issues, and I think it's recognizing this again. Back to it, it's the scale of the issues, and that's what gives me hope and gives me a sense of joy. Not to excuse what the issues are, it's that thing, isn't it? It's same in life. I do have issues in my life, obviously, like, relationship issues or family issues, or, got some stuff going on with my uncle at the minute that's a bit of a nightmare. But then you look back and you're like, mate, I have a roof over my head. I
always say this.
I eat great food every night. I have enough money to keep me going. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it doesn't make my issues not true, but I have to hold them in
it's all relative. Like when every time I go abroad, I remember when I went to Athens last year in April, right? And the inequality there is ridiculous. You see so many homeless people there just on the streets, just they have nothing, whereas I remember there was one day where it was chucking it down with rain, had nothing, I had just a t-shirt and shorts on. I can go on Bolt on my phone, I can get a taxi in 2 minutes easily. It's things like that, and it's just appreciating, what you have. And, we all, like I said, we all have problems. We all have things that we deal with. But when you compare it relative to what other people have, it's something to appreciate. And I think that's really applicable to Arsenal.
I think so. And apologies if people think I might be a little bit crass as a comparison, but I do think it's true. It's like it's the relative issues. It's the relative issues, and I really feel that. Right, Rohan, let's do some questions. And can you just remind me, if I wanted priority access to questions, if I sort of wanted my questions to be answered almost as a guarantee, where would I go? What would I do?
Well, you need to sign up to become a Patreon or YouTube member. That's it. You can get access to the Discord server, and mate, it's always popping off there. Dinny's always there. He's a top lad. There's a lot of other really good people in there. And if you want to, it's not just about the questions. It's about the community, being around other Arsenal fans as well, having debate, Arteta in, Arteta out. You can have all that sort of stuff.
Are there people on the Discord who want Arteta out?
No, I don't think so.
If you're on the Cannon Podcast Discord and you want Arteta out, I think you might be outnumbered. Let's start with this from Ed, who says, "You're allowed to send Arteta a single message of 12 words or less, which he has to implement moving forward. What do you write to him?" I would say a lot of the kind of the attacking issues that we talk about, I think can be solved to some degree with talent. Like, it's just, there is a talent aspect to it. And if you have Bradley Barcola, you have less worries about balance and, touches, and because you can create something out of nothing, and you could argue, oh, he's going to coach it out of it. But I don't. When you're that talented, you can't be coached out of that. It's not. I don't think it's possible. So for me, it would be 12 words. Pressure the board. 3 for more attacking talent. No, for top end attacking talent. Pressure the board for more top end attacking talent. That's 9 words. Because I think if we can get ourselves this summer a proper £90 million, £100 million superstar forward, wherever you want to go with it, whether you want to go Leao or Barcola or Rodrigo or whatever. If you can do that, I do think a lot of these issues we sort of consign to history. Yeah. Because I think a lot of it comes from Arteta like looking at Trossard and saying, okay, I can get the most out of you if I do a proper coaching job on you. And by the way, he's probably not wrong. Trossard, this is no disrespect to Trossard, but in terms of the raw gifts he's got, the reason Trossard is as good as he is not just complete luck. You know what I mean? He's been coached by Arteta, and you can see that in the way he uses his body, in the way he interprets situations, his runs, all those sorts of things. There's that, but there's a level of talent in the boots of a Barcola or whatever that changes conversations. Yeah. And I have been, there's so many caveats to this conversation, but I have been disappointed in Arsenal, not Arteta, in Arsenal's forward recruitment in general. So I think that would solve. I know it's a pretty basic answer, to be honest, but that's what I'd say.
It's literally where I'd lean to as well. I mean, I think the Trossard example is actually a really good way to show how well Mikel coaches a forward player, because I didn't envisage Trossard becoming this passer type touchline winger who's playing these cute corridor passes inside to find space behind teams that are defending in a very compact block. Like the Sunderland game, he was finding it time and time again, and Sunderland were defending the spaces really well. Trossard kept finding it and finding it and finding it. I don't know about you, I've always thought Trossard is a player in which, I mean, I still would say his best moments do come inside, but I didn't foresee him giving us this level when he is on the touchline. Especially some of his crosses on his weaker foot. When he goes on the outside. For me, mate, I'll go even simpler. Play Eze more. Yeah.
What do you think is going on there? Because I don't think it's as simple as not tracking Matty Cash.
No, because he started against Wolves. But I think people forgot he started the game against Wolves the week after.
Oh, really? Oh.
That was the next game.
No, people did forget. That was me.
But and that's fair. Like he started against Wolves, so I don't think it's a tracking back thing. What I do think, though, and I spoke about this before, where games, I mean, the Aston Villa game kind of, goes against what I'm saying here, but a lot of the games that we've had, the game is on a 1-goal margin, so I do think Mikel believes Eze can give the threat going forward, but I think it's not because he didn't trap Matty Cash, but I think it's because he doesn't believe Eze is going to be able to apply himself correctly in the moments when we don't have the ball. And that's why you see someone like a Martinelli come on for Trossard, because Martinelli, he'll believe he can give the threat going forward, but he knows that Martinelli knows what to do without the ball in most situations, and that gives him the comfort. I feel like that, and maybe that's where the pressure also gets to Mikel, because he's thinking, if I bring Eze on, he could definitely give us the threat, but he might not be able to apply himself accordingly in that situation, which could cause us danger, in the same way as Madueke. Mm-hmm. I want you, next time, when Madueke starts, look at Mikel and look at Mikel, and when he's seeing Madueke, he's on his neck all the time. And it's not because Noni Madueke is lazy, it's because he's not applying himself to what the manager wants. I would say, Mikel, maybe loosen up a little bit there. Loosen up a little bit. And Eze, I genuinely think sometimes, when me and you are like, it's not good to do lineup analysis. There's, you've got so many options to change game, etc. I do think sometimes there is an element in which just pick Eze, for example. Pick him on the left wing. This is a game against Nottingham Forest. It's a game in which it's not a pressing game. It's a game in which we need a lock picker. I've always thought Eze was the player that we were going to have predominantly on the left wing. Clearly, we wanted to manage Trossard. Why go for the Martinelli, who I think's had an underrated season, who's not going to be the optimal solution in a game against a team that is going to deny space in behind? So play Eze more. I think genuinely do play Eze more.
We had a question actually. Sorry, Discorders. After that brilliant piece of promo, I'm going to go to X, because there was a good question from Theo. If Mikel gets us over the line after the Premier League and the Champions League, do you think we'll see a change in his philosophy as a manager next season? Theo said at the end, I feel like at the moment he's really playing the margins just to secure a title no matter how. I do think we'll see. I've said before about the media, I think he'll be a lot more open. But I also think in terms of, I think he would take more risks. I think he would be a bit more.
In what way though? Like, because risks. I always think the concept of risk is really like He could argue like, well, we take risk in this aspect. We take risk, but like we take risk with David Raya on the ball against this high press. Do you know what I mean?
But if I knew Mikel, I would say stop being obtuse. You know what I mean? It's like, you know exactly what I mean. You know, it's putting the ball more at risk. There you go. If you want to say that, there is a speed at which we move in the final third, which I understand, by the way. And I think this whole thing of like, we need more tempo. Well, then you'll lose the ball more. You'll have more turnovers. Watch that Villa. Who do they play? Everton. Watch the Villa Everton game. Turnover. Honestly, and it's like unwatchable from a control perspective, from my perspective. Or the we didn't even speak about AFCON, did we? If you watch some of that game, the Senegal Morocco game, which incredible. Maybe we'll talk about that in a second. But if you watch the actual game, it was just turnover after turnover, and like, it's more exciting maybe for some fans, but for me, when I'm watching it, I was imagining Mikel watching it like, do
you not find that enjoyable?
No, I find it enjoyable, but I was imagining Mikel watching it and just going, I can't. This is not coachable, and I understand that. But sometimes just, you know, giving the ball a whack or just like playing a 90-yard pinger, try it. You know, it's those things, and just freeing people up a bit more. I imagine they're so well prepared when going into games. And it's just maybe occasionally just going, do you know what, guys? We've done loads of prep for this game, but actually, I trust you. So here's one thing about them that I think you could exploit. Go work it out.
That's the Wenger way.
Yeah. And
that's how Wenger was, you know.
And we can't do that at the minute because there's so much at risk. But if there is, you know, cup games next season, once we've won a Premier League, whatever, that, you know, I think we can be a bit more like that. And I think he will relax. Do you know, I watched a leadership interview with him and Steve Kerr.
Yeah, that was a while ago, wasn't it?
The big thing I took away from it, I said at the time, was Mikel has he has a lot of principles and a lot of like, this is the way I do things. And Steve Kerr has a lot of stories. And so it's like, it will be, Mikel, how do you deal with a tricky player? Well, you talk to them this, and you think about where you have the conversation, you think about why you're having the conversation, and you start with this. And he has all these, which is great. Steve Kerr will go, I had this tricky conversation and it taught me this. And I think sometimes the experience gives you just a bit of a like, I'm just going to allow a bit more rather than control. And I think maybe he'll go down that path.
Maybe it's just to add a bit more there. Maybe it's like Mikel wants to, you know, give himself the best opportunity to have the best possible conversation in that moment. Whereas, someone else is more trial and error. I'll try it this way. If it don't work, I'll try it a different way. If that don't work, I'm converging to the desired solution. I'm not diverging. Whereas Mikel wants to converge to the solution before. He wants to converge to the best conversation before having the conversation. You know.
I mean, this is not the podcast for it, but I mean, whether you believe you have free will or not is a conversation. And I think sometimes allowing what is meant to, like, one of the Steve Kerr's things was like a couple of like fights between his players. He'd be like, I just let them work it out. I didn't intervene. I just went, you guys, you're going to put you in a room and you're going to talk about it, and I'm leaving the room type thing. And I just wonder whether sometimes that leads to slightly more empowered players at times. No, let's go back to the Discord. Let's go. Do you know who we should go to? Our boy Denny.
God.
It's looking ever more likely that if we win the league this season, we'll be a statistical anomaly amongst league winners. Is that something you embrace or something that worries you? I think until I'd seen the data. Also, we're the second highest goal scorers in the league. We're 5 behind City, who have Haaland. So, like, we're not, as a team, we're not miles and miles behind. So I'm not worried about. We probably will be a team with, you know, probably a maximum of something. If Trossard ends up on 12 goals or Saka on 11 or something, I think that would be an anomaly. But I think we'd also be an anomaly in terms of how many goal scorers and spreading the goals. I think that's where the team is headed. But I also do think there's an energetic aspect to this of like, you want someone who you sort of back and believe in. And I think the fans will get jittery if there's not a player who seems to be bailing us out a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I think, and that's one of the risks of it, It's like if you don't have, we all know when the game gets to 70 minutes and Alexis was on the pitch, it's like, come on, mate.
Yeah.
And that's a good feeling for both the players and the fans, and for him, and often it would result in something. We don't really have that, so I think we're an anomaly in that sense, and that worries me.
Well, it's like you go through Premier League history. You go to Leicester's title-winning season. Jamie Vardy's on the pitch. Yeah, something will happen.
Yep.
Man United. Wayne Rooney's on the pitch. Yeah. Van Persie for us. Van Persie for United. Henry. Recent history. Look at Haaland. Mohamed Salah last season. There's always hope in which we're going to get over the line because this guy's going to bag. There isn't that feeling right now, and the numbers kind of show that. In terms of whether I'd, be upset by it, I wouldn't be upset by it. If we're playing a way that I enjoy and that warrants the league, that's for me is all there is to it. I do wonder though, like I do think certain players are gonna go up a notch and they're gonna hit numbers. I think Saka is bubbling. I really do think. I think Saka, that game against Nottingham Forest when he came on, he was doing everything in his power to get us over the line. I think certain players are just gonna go through a patch, and I've been saying this for a long time. To be fair, this season, but I do think someone like a Saka will go on a hot streak, and I do think I think Eze can have a really big impact in the second half of the season.
I look at, there's a lot of players in this team, mate, who I think haven't had their moment yet.
Yeah.
And I think I would say, if we go through, Trossard's kind of had his moment. You know what I mean? Like he's had his period of the season. Gabby Jesus hasn't. Saka hasn't. Eza hasn't. Gyökeres hasn't, really. Yeah. Martinelli, maybe. Martinelli might have had his moment. It's in the Champions League, possibly. Noni's not had his moment. Kai Havertz has not had his moment. Martin Odegaard has not had his moment. Waneri. Like, there's so many players you go... And I'm not saying they're all going to have their moment, but what I'm saying is there's lots of players who are still with a point to prove this season and are yet to come into the team and show us what we know they can do. Yeah. And so, I am optimistic. I also think, two things on Saka. One, what's being overshadowed by the lack of goals and assists at the minute, which, it is a concern. We can't just bury our heads in the sand and go, because he's Saka, that's... Yeah, no. He has to contribute a bit more. But what is being buried by that is his ability to go both ways. He has downloaded that pack, as George would say. He can fully go both ways now, and that's really exciting. And the consistency of his crossing off his right foot is really, really good. And I think Havertz will be a huge help for Saka.
Yeah,
huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Especially when you're talking about what's one of our classic final third actions. It's cutting inside, half space cross towards the far side. That's a trademark. Saka put one on the money against Forest, and we didn't convert. Yeah.
Nick says, which Arsenal player do you think would be the most adequate with Microsoft Excel?
Should we do most adequate and least adequate?
Who'd be the best on Microsoft Excel?
Marino.
Yeah, that's such a good pick.
Yeah.
Marino would be, yeah. It's definitely Marino. Or Kepa, maybe. Kepa gives me that vibe.
Yeah. Basically, what we're going to say now, least adequate, is who's thick.
No, it's not even necessarily thick. It's just someone who doesn't, just obviously wouldn't care. True. Someone like a Gabrielle, it's just like, I'm not bothered. Mm. I think someone like a Noni or an Eza could be quite good.
I was going to say Noni, actually. Yeah, Noni. Nah, Eze's like a chess champion. He's definitely...
Yeah.
He's... Yeah, I think
he'd be good at Excel.
There's some correlation between Excel and chess there.
Schmoody on the Discord says, if we win the league, what song would you choose for an edit to encapsulate this journey under Arteta's Arsenal? Let it all work out.
That'd be good.
Let it all work out. If it's not that or The Angel...
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah,
or should we just
but then you just go into your favourite songs rather than necessarily a song that approaches like sort of is an Arsenal thing.
Imagine it's just before the North London Forever, Arsenal would always come out to right here, right now.
Right here, right now. I will say one of the coldest moments of lockdown football was, people won't remember this, but actually weirdly, I was on live from N5 when Lacazette came back and he like shook everyone's hand and stuff. And I was like, oh my god, like I said, I've critiqued you so many times. I've said some crazy stuff about you. Anyway, he's right in the room. Really nice energy actually, and he was talking about all these knee slides, and he scored a penalty at home. I can't remember who it was against, and they played "Highest in the Room" by Travis Scott.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it was quite cold. It was cold.
He had a good knee slide, to be fair.
He did. I literally said cold knee slide. And he said thank you.
Yeah.
Best way on life.
Because a knee slide, you can't get that. If you're doing a knee slide, you got to commit to it. You can't be doing any half measures. You got to go all in. Imagine the turf's not like, it's not wet enough. It's just like dry. Do your knees.
Final one on Discord from Cole. What is each of the boys' favourite life hack?
Life hack. Life hack.
Life hack. I don't know if I have a life hack.
Is there something like I've become aware of that can change your life?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm more and more sleep is important to me. Like
that's just getting older, isn't it? That's
but
age.
no, but it's more just like good quality sleep.
Yeah.
Like in a darkened room, not too warm, eye mask, no phone, like an hour before bed, things like that, like no alcohol, etc. Like getting a proper sleep can change your whole perspective, mate.
Oh, if we're going down that route,
it's not really a life hack though.
I'd definitely say get into your fitness. Genuinely, it's not. It's who gives a flying monkeys about wanting a 6-pack or like beefed up. Just get into your fitness. Whether it's running, whether it's cycling, whether it's swimming, do something. Whether it's getting like 10k steps in a day, honestly, you will feel so much more energetic. The day will feel so much better. It's not easy at the start. For a lot of people who will be watching, perhaps it's not as easy, and that's all right. But little by little, if you can prioritize a bit of fitness in your life, it will do wonders for you. Genuinely,
it's great. I went to the gym today and I was doing some tricep pull downs, and like before that I wasn't like having a bad day, but it was just kind of like neutral.
Yeah.
And I did like 3, and I just noticed a thought that was like immediately like, oh yeah,
and
it was like, I'm good, life's good. Like just immediately it just changes your frequency, doesn't it?
It's honest. It makes such a difference.
Yeah. Question from Couch on X was about Eze, but we sort of covered it. What do you think happens with Eze, I guess is the question. Like, yeah, where do you see him?
It's difficult to say, isn't it? Because what do we have in front of us right now? We've seen Eze play, right, a lot of minutes for Arsenal in general. Very, very comparable to his minutes he's had at Palace so far. That's largely without Martin Odegaard being in the team. I wonder, how much we would have seen of Eze. I do want. My feeling is that we are going to see more of Eze on the left wing. That's the position I felt we're going to see him predominantly in. And bless you. And that's the position that I do think that we can get real good quality out of him, because the way that I see Trossard play, how he interprets that role, Eze can do a lot of those things. And I also think if there's my like big takeaway from the past couple of games, it's like just stop playing the same combinations time and time again. We've already spoken about continuity, and I completely do want to see certain partnerships develop, but back your words in terms of it depends on the opposition in relation to what they're doing. He definitely has an idea of what the opposition do, but I just want to see more of it in terms of your intention in the game. I want to see Eze playing more on the right at right centre mid as well when Odegaard is fit and available, when the game requires for it. I want to see Eze more against teams that are sitting off on the left wing. I just think, I kind of like, maybe this is not kind of answering the question, but I do think that we'll see more of him on the left wing, but equally, I didn't expect him to move me as much on the right side of midfield normally, but he did. And, there's going to be games for him that he can be the difference maker. You said it perfectly in the Forest game. That is a game where you need a moment. Yeah. Eze was brought in as a moments player, so.
And especially on the right hand side, people might say, the pressing. Bro, name me like 2 pressing sequences against Forest. They did not allow us to press them.
Exactly. So what's the point? It's like, for example, just to my final point on this, sorry, it's like the West Ham. I loved Mikel's intention in that game against West Ham. He recognised West Ham are not going to play out from the back. They're going to lump it long. So it's going to be about us breaking them down, a lock-picking type of game. What did he do? He went with Ødegaard and Eze in the same team in those number 8/10 positions. And then against Wolves, I was a bit disappointed that he didn't go with that same sort of approach, because it isn't going to be a game in which Wolves are going to try and play out. It's going to be a game in which you need to unlock the door, and we didn't see that. So, that sort of thing.
Yeah. I also think Eze could be a big help in getting Gyökeres, out of whatever this is at the minute. Like, I felt as though that partnership, could be a kind of Mateta-esque thing, where Eze receives it, and plays it straight through to Gyökeres. I think there's some quality there for him to pick up. So yeah, it's an interesting one. It's an interesting one with Eze. I wonder how he feels.
Yeah. Just to maybe finish on the Gyökeres point, like, I've been very critical of Gyökeres in recent weeks and months, but he's not this bad. I refuse to believe he's this bad. Being completely honest, what he is producing for us since his injury is nowhere near good enough. I'm sorry, we can't keep trying to look. The moment you're trying to look for things so closely, that is your problem, because quality screams in front of it. It shouts from your TV. Not seeing anything from that Gyökeres. I refuse to believe he's this bad. And the Eze point is a good one, because Gyökeres' best games have come with Eze there. So
I think that's something there. What's that thing? All roads lead to Rome. All Arsenal podcasts lead to Gyökeres.
especially yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll leave it there. Thank you all for joining us on the Cannon Podcast. We appreciate you guys a lot. We'll be back with. Are you doing a rewatch this week or no?
No rewatch this week.
No rewatch this week, but we'll rate my take for you. We'll have a preview for you with Liège for the United game. We might have a scout for you depending on what happens later on this week. I doubt Arsenal are going to make any signings, but if we do, we will obviously get a scout out for you. Just thank you all for being here. It's such a privilege to be able to talk about Arsenal every week and do it, and get paid for it, which is just crazy. So, the fact that we get to do that is amazing. The fact that we get to do that with such an amazing community of people who engage with it, and, through the ups and downs, we're all together and having this experience together. It's a really, really cool thing. So thank you all for being here. Don't know if you wanted to say anything, Mr. Hat.
That was beautiful. If I added more to that, I'd ruin it. So I will leave it with.
What? The hat is a choice.
I kind of was feeling myself with it. I was thinking, this looks all right, and my hair was
comments. I want you to know that.
But honestly, it was raining. Like, and I didn't have an umbrella. I'm an umbrella guy.
Raining.
I'm an umbrella guy, so I've always got it.
Both teams.
Didn't have it. Had the hat on. I didn't have my cap, so thought I'm going with it.
Final question for you, Rohan. Actually, before we close the show, what is the best Arsenal meme?
I don't know if it was a meme. I'm not going to say it. It's very inappropriate. It's really inappropriate. I'm not saying that one.
Say it.
Okay. Do you remember that one? It was a Facebook one where he takes his mum to the Arsenal game.
Ah, yes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, good.
Your one?
The great Claude, rest his soul. When he said, when your milk goes stale, what do you do with it? You don't put it back in the fridge.
Do you know what? That guy lived and breathed Arsenal. He wanted the best for this club. Respect to him.
We got to do it for him.
Yeah, got to do it for
Claude,
him.
man.
Do it for Claude.
We are 7 points clear. We are the only unbeaten team in the Champions League. Actually, is that true?
Yeah, we are. Oh, no. Yeah, we are.
Yeah, we are. The only unbeaten team in the Champions League. Let me start that again. We are 7 points clear. We are the only unbeaten team in the Champions League. We are 2 games away and with 1 foot in the final of the Carabao Cup final. We have Wigan, then the 5th round, then the quarterfinals, then the semi-finals, and the final of the FA Cup. We're on for a quadruple, lads. We may have issues. We do have issues, and we've discussed them. We never shy away on this podcast from critiquing when critique is deserved, and it is deserved after that Forest performance. You can feel whatever you want, But here's how I feel. The big picture of this season is really, 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 really good. And there is huge strides to go. That's the important part. There's huge strides. Kai Havertz to come back into the team. Gabriel Jesus finding fitness. Gyökeres isn't this bad. Like, whatever you think of him, he isn't this bad. And I think he'll get back there maybe when he comes out of the team. Saka's got big strides. When Eric can get back into this team, I think, if you look at our run-in and stuff, there's so much reason to be positive. So, yeah, we just keep going. I just want to find a bit more joy in this season. I want to find a bit more joy.
Love that.
Thank you, Rohan.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching and listening. And thanks for keeping it Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. This was one kind of queue the ladies thoroughly enjoyed.
Electrifying. Inspiration.